Hello writers, this is Katie McNulty with the Lackawanna College Writing Center. Welcome to this brief video tutorial on how to construct MLA in text citations. A few notes about this video before we begin. This video works with MLA 9th edition, and it also assumes that you already know how to format an MLA Works Cited page. If you don't, no worries. There will be material linked underneath the description, as well as a little overview within the video. It also moves pretty quickly, so have your mouse ready to pause and read over parts that you might not get to read during the presentation. So let's talk for one about why we use citations. In-text citations are extremely important in academic writing. Regardless of whether or not you have a Works Cited page, you must use in-text citations. It's not enough just to do a Works Cited page. These are used to support your argument or your point by directing your reader exactly to the source that you got your information from to back up your argument. And this also credits the original source's ideas, research, and the work that they put in, which means that it helps to uphold academic honesty and avoid plagiarism. If you take information that is not your own and you don't give proper credit, it is plagiarism, and that is stealing, and there are severe consequences in the academic world for that. Using in-text citations also allows your reader to quickly locate the original source. Key word here is quickly, which we'll go over, so that your reader can go to that original source and independently and critically decide whether or not that source does in fact support your claim. This is also helpful just in case your reader is curious about it and wants to do more research on that topic and look at that original source. So when to use citations? Citations must be used whenever you are using direct quotes from another source, and also any information paraphrased from another source. A direct quote means any sentence or a series of words that are word for word from someplace else. When you paraphrase information, this could be information that has been reworded in different language than the original text did, or simply data, facts, statistics, findings, and ideas that come from another source. Whether to paraphrase or use direct quotations really depends on the assignment and the information that you are citing. So, for instance, if you're analyzing literature, it might be best to use the direct quote the way that the author has put it. But when you are citing research information, such as numbers or other data, a direct quote's not always necessary, and it may break the flow of your essay and be best to put it in your own voice. So here is the gist with in-text citations. You place a citation next to any information that you took from that source. Inside that citation, you place the first piece of information from your Works Cited entry in parentheses. More on that in a moment. Because you are placing the first piece of information, this is why it is important that you have a correct Works Cited entry first before you go back into the in-text citations. So a very quick review about a Works Cited entry. Here is the gist of the format. You are welcome to pause and look this over. A Works Cited entry will be capitalized the same way and punctuated the same way as you see here. It will vary depending on the type of source that you have, as well as the amount of information that is presented in that source. Don't forget that your Works Cited entries must go in alphabetical order by that first letter in the entry, and this is also very important as well. So here is an example of a Works Cited entry right here. Notice the very first piece of information right here. We have an author's last name. We use the last name, which is probably something you've heard before. Look at this direct quote right here, and notice at the end, we have the author's last name in parentheses. Now, this was from a website entry in a database that did not have pages. However, if the source did have pages, you would keep it the same format with a space and the page number that that specific information came from. If you are using a database that has an HTML version and a PDF version, use the PDF version and use the original page number to best guide your reader to that information. The idea is that your reader can immediately go to the entry because it's in alphabetical order and it's the first part, click or access the source and get immediately to the information that you cited. You don't want to make it an obstacle for your reader. Also, notice the location of the period. It is after the citation. It is not within the quotation. Another way to cite is to take the same, we'll use an example, is to introduce the author or the piece of work first. So here we have the example we did in the last slide. And here we have the same exact quote with a different method of citing it. According to Ramirez, so introduce your source, comma, and then we have our quote. And we have our period inside the quote because there's no page number here. If you have a page number, notice that you would introduce and then you would simply put the page number in parentheses at the end, followed by a period. Because the author is credited over here, there is no need to do both, and it's good to switch it up when you are writing. It's a style preference. When you have multiple authors, like two authors, you use two last names. So let's look at this source right here. Pause if you need to review it. If we were to do an in-text citation, we would simply take the last names, despite the fact that the last name's first for the first author and second for the second author. So pay attention to see how many authors there are when you're constructing your in-text citation. If you have 3 or more authors, you simply use the last name of the first listed author and then et al. And the page number if you have one. So here we have an example entry, and we would construct our in-text citation with the last name of that author listed and then the et space al period. Same rules for the page numbers. Notice right here that there is no P period or PAGE or PP right here. It is simply a space. There's no comma either. If you have no author, no problem. A lot of websites, particularly government websites, organizations, will not have an author for information. So as I mentioned, you are going to use the very first part of the Works Cited. If you don't have an author, then you go immediately to the title of the article or the shorter piece, the web page, and so forth. So if you have an original quote, you would put it in, but here let's take an example of a paraphrased quote. If you want to pause and read over the original quote to compare, please do so. Here we have the original quote up top, and we've taken the valuable information from the quote, but put it in, I put it in my own voice a little bit. I kind of took just the information and a little bit of the wordiness out of the original to get to the main points, the main numbers, but because I didn't construct that and I didn't come up with this probability or this prediction, I give credit to it. And I give credit to it by directing my reader again to that first piece of information so that it's easily accessible. Notice right here that it is capitalized the same, it has quotation marks, and it's punctuated the same, and that period is in the same place. Now, if this was a very long title, you can shorten it. So a lot of times people will take whatever is before the colon and end it there. It will still get your reader right to that original source. I did not think this was super long, so I kept it. Finally, let's take a look at our Works Cited page utilizing all of the examples shown to you in this presentation. Notice that it's in alphabetical order, and all of your in-text citations started with the first part of these entries. So whether that was a title or whether it was a last name, this guides your reader immediately to the source, and everything is cited correctly. As we are in the year 2021 when this video is being made, we mostly use web sources, but the source should be able to be easily identified in a library, or it should be easy to navigate to so that your reader doesn't have to do any sort of investigating, can get right to where you got your information from. So for instance, I clicked the link in that first source. If I went right down to it, and I am right on the page where the author has gotten the information, and look, I have gotten right to that prediction about the 95% probability mentioned in that quotation. So I can find the context if I wanted to about where that information came. I can see this is from the NASA website, so I can gather that it's a pretty credible source. And I did not have to do any Googling or investigating. It was super easy, which is why it is so important that you have accurate works cited entries and in-text citations. For more help, always visit the Writing Center, and you can get as much assistance as you need to get that right, avoiding plagiarism and properly citing your papers. Please take a look at any of the materials posted in the description if you are still confused as well, and happy writing, everybody.